I woke to the world's harsh echoes, gunfire cracking like distant thunder, screams of men sharp as predator cries, a cacophony I'd never known in my slumber. The earth beneath me trembled, but not from my steps this time. It shivered with the madness of men, the violence of their lifetimes. Curious, not cruel, I rose, shaking off eons of stillness, my scales catching the faint sunlight, breaking through the canopy's thickness. Through the jungle, I moved, each step unsettling the forest floor, but no roar escaped my lips. Not yet, not until their bullets tore. The first one hit like a hornet's sting, sharp, burning, splitting my hide. I roared, not in fury, but in anguish, in disbelief at the hatred they decide. Why? My thoughts, an ancient whisper. Why do you strike what you do not know? But they did not hear, or care to listen. Their guns sang again, a deadly show. My blood fell in crimson rivers, soaking the earth with my pain, yet I pressed on through the trees, seeking landfall, seeking meaning in vain. Japanese soldiers scattered in awe, some trembling, some kneeling low. They saw not a monster, but a relic, a ghost of a world they'd never known. My limbs ached, my breath grew shallow, yet I trudged on, feeling the sun's warm touch. The trees parted, revealing the beach, and the open sky I'd missed so much. But waiting there was not solace, only men with guns in hand. They fired as one, a chorus of violence, tearing my body, staining the sand. The pain faded, a dull hum in my chest, my massive heart slowing its beat. I fell, the ground rushing to meet me, the sun above, fierce and bittersweet. I stared at that burning orb, so distant, so eternal, so free, and for a moment I forgot the hatred and remembered the creature I used to be. A final breath escaped my lips, a rumble, soft, almost a sigh. And in that fleeting, quiet second, I said goodbye to the sky.
The jungle was alive that day, not with the songs of birds or whispers of wind, but with the chaos of war. Gunfire rattled like a viper's hiss, men screamed as their bodies fell, and the trees ancient and tall bore witness to the madness. Amidst the green where death had taken root, it emerged, a creature from a forgotten world. A dinosaur, alive, real, moving like a shadow through the underbrush. Its eyes, deep pools of some ancient knowing, met mine for the briefest of moments, and in them I saw no malice. It was calm, not a threat, not a predator, but something curious. Its footsteps shook the earth, yet it walked with a strange gentleness, carefully navigating a world it did not belong to. But men are men, and fear is their most loyal companion. The Americans turned their rifles toward it, bullets tore through its scaled hide, and the roar it gave, it wasn't anger. It was pain, raw and deep, a sound that pierced my soul and lodged itself in my memory forever. That roar, it echoes in my ears to this day. No song, no voice, no word will ever replace its mournful tone. It was a plea, a question unspoken but clear. Why? The beast stumbled, blood flowing like rivers, but it kept moving, staggering toward the beach. Drawn perhaps to the sunlit shore, or maybe to some place of peace. The Americans followed, their guns still firing, each shot a nail in the coffin of something older than any war, older than us all. When it fell with a grace I will never forget. Its massive body crumpled onto the sand, and yet it still lived. Its chest heaved, its breath shallow. And then it looked at me. In that gaze, I saw not a monster, but a being so ancient, so majestic in its suffering that my chest ached with the weight of it. If it weren't for this creature, its presence, its courage, I would not have survived that day. Many of us wouldn't have. When the fighting stopped and silence fell over the beach, I approached it. Its dark eyes held mine once more, and I could see the pain, the betrayal, the burden it bore for simply existing. I stood there, rifle in hand, and I gave it the only thing I could. A salute. Tears blurred my vision, but I held my stance, a soldier showing respect to a life that should never have been taken. My comrades looked at me as if I were mad, but they did not see what I saw. I carry that guilt, that sadness, like a wound that will never heal. The roar of that creature lives within me, its pain a shadow that stretches through every quiet moment of my life. It was no monster, it was no threat. It was a miracle, one that we destroyed. I think of it often on nights when the world feels still. I wonder if its kind were meant to return, to remind us of what we've lost, of what we've done. And I wonder, if it could speak, would it have forgiven us?
I stood in the shadow of the giant, not the dinosaur I once knew, but a god forged in fire and fury, Godzilla, no longer the curious creature that wandered through the jungle of my past, but a force, a reckoning, a nightmare born of our sins. The room trembled beneath his steps, glass shattering, walls quaking, yet I did not flinch. How could I? For there he was, the living ghost of my youth, a being I owed my life to, now staring back at me with eyes full of something I could no longer recognize. In his gaze there was no mercy, no recognition, only a storm of rage and sorrow that I could not calm. Did he remember me? The man who saluted him on that beach, tears blinding his vision, a soldier showing gratitude to a dying miracle? Perhaps he did. Perhaps that's why he paused, why his massive form stood still, casting a shadow that swallowed me whole. I felt the weight of his presence, the gravity of a life twisted by human hands, and I knew, deep down, this was my reckoning. Godzilla, I whispered, my voice trembling, a sound so small in the roar of his existence. I wanted to say more, to tell him I was sorry, that I carried the weight of his pain every day of my life. But words are fragile things, and they shattered before they reached him. I knelt there, a man stripped of pride, of power, of everything but memory. I saw him, not as the monster the world feared, but as the creature I once saluted, bleeding and broken on a sandy shore, staring at the sun for the last time. Tears blurred my vision once more, just as they had all those years ago. This was not a moment of fear, but of understanding, of closure. The creature I owed my life to had become my judge, my executioner. As his atomic breath ignited, a blinding light filled the room, but I did not look away. I faced him, unflinching, accepting. For in his wrath, there was justice. The heat consumed me. The end was swift, but in that final moment, as the world faded to white, I felt no anger, no regret, only the weight of gratitude for a life borrowed and the peace of returning it to the creature who once saved me. Godzilla, I hope, in some way, you understood.
I moved through the ruins, a mass of destruction that I've become, a colossus born of fire, bound to wrath by forces unseen. The air was thick with ash and fear. The screams of the world a dull echo, yet there he stood, a lone figure amidst the wreckage, unwavering. Did I know him? This fragile man, weathered by time and regret, his face was told with something familiar and haunting. Through the veil of rage that consumed me, a memory stirred, faint but unyielding, like the sun piercing through storm clouds. A jungle, gunfire crack in the silence, the sharp sting of pain as their weapons tore my flesh. And yet, among the chaos a moment, a hand raised in salute, a gesture of respect, of sorrow. It was him. The man who knelt before me as I lay dying on the beach, bleeding, broken, but alive. The man whose tears fell for a creature the world would not silence formed towering over him. The roar of my anger quieted, replaced by something deeper, a turmoil I could not name. Could he see it? Could he see past the fury, the destruction, to the heart that still remembered? His gaze met mine, steady, unafraid. There was no pleading, no fear, only understanding, and something I had not seen in decades. Gratitude. He whispered my name, not the name they gave me, the symbol of their fear, but the one that belonged to the creature I once was, the creature he once saved. The sound was small, lost in the vastness of my existence, yet it reached me. It pierced through the haze of my pain, and for a moment, I was that creature again. But the moment could not last. The world demanded its justice, its vengeance. I was no longer just a being, but a force, a reckoning. The fire within me surged, a power I could not contain. And as the glow of destruction lit the space between us, I saw him close his eyes, not in fear, but in peace. He accepted what was to come, as if he understood that this was not anger, but inevitability. My roar filled the air, not of rage, but of mourning. For in that moment, I was not a god, not a monster, but a creature who remembered, a creature who grieved. As the light consumed him, I felt the weight of what I had become, and the weight of what I had lost. The man who once saluted me, who showed me kindness in a world of cruelty, was gone. I turned from the ruins. The fire within me dimmed, but the memory remained. His face, his tears, the unspoken bond we shared. And as I moved through the ash and silence, I carried his memory with me, a burden and a solace, a reminder of the man who mourned a monster that the world could not love.